Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine uh, a rapidly growing company, let's call them Data Corp, that's just exploding with data.
Right.
They've got data pouring in from sales, marketing, operations, but it's, scattered everywhere.
The classic sprawl problem.
Exactly. Different teams building their own reports, maybe trusting different versions of the same data.
Yeah, and nobody really knows who has access to what or where anything actually came from.
Sound familiar? I
Yeah.
think it does for a lot of people. Today, we're diving into something that's becoming, well, absolutely essential for anyone wrestling with data at scale. Databricks Unity Catalog. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by managing data access, security, and tracking in a big data landscape, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Exactly. And the big problem many organizations face is this data sprawl,
Yeah.
where trust and control are constantly battling complexity.
Right.
Our mission today is really to cut through let's say, the technical jargon in our source documents.
Yeah, get to the core of it.
And show you how Unity Catalog isn't just another tool, but maybe the strategic piece that fundamentally changes how you govern your data, hopefully unlocking those aha moments for your data strategy.
Okay, so if you're Data Corp struggling with this chaos, what exactly is Unity Catalog? How does it start tackling these core issues?
Right.
Our sources describe it as a unified governance solution, and it brings, well, 4 big things to the table that sound like real game changers. The first one, centralized metadata management.
Yeah, this is absolutely critical. And it's more than just putting things in one place,
Yep.
Think about all those meetings trying to reconcile data from different teams. Or like a data scientist spending maybe 30% of the time just trying to figure out which sales data table is the real one.
Wasted effort.
Totally. So centralized metadata with Unity Catalog means all your data assets, tables, views, files, functions, even ML models, structured, unstructured data sets, they're all cataloged in one single metastore. One place. It fundamentally eliminates that data reconciliation tax, you could call it.
Yeah.
Freeing up your teams to actually do data science, not data detective work. That's the real shift.
And okay, once you have that single source of truth, the next challenge is usually access, right? Who gets to see what? How does Unity Catalog help organizations get really granular with access, especially when you're dealing with sensitive info across different departments?
Yeah, this is where its fine-grained access controls really shine. You're not just granting access to a whole data set anymore.
Okay.
You can secure entire tables, individual columns, or even filter rows containing sensitive information like PII based on who's actually querying it.
So it's surgical precision.
Surgical precision, exactly. And that's absolutely vital for security and compliance, especially with regulated data or, say, supporting a multi-tenant application. You need that level of control.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the third pillar you mentioned was data lineage and audit logging. Sounds like automatic history.
Pretty much. And the real power here, Unity Catalog just automatically handles tracking all that data flow.
Automatically?
Yeah, through query and transformation lineage. Plus, it logs user actions, reads, writes, permission changes, schema modifications, everything.
Wow.
You get a complete verifiable chain of custody for every single data asset. It's invaluable for compliance audits, obviously, but also just for building trust in your data.
Like an unblinking eye on your data estate.
Sort of, yeah. An unalterable historical record.
Okay, and the fourth one, a huge challenge for many places, is consistency. Different environments, different teams. How does Unity Catalog tackle that? Ensure a uniform security posture everywhere.
Right. Consistency across environments is often a massive headache. Unity Catalog solves this by providing a consistent security model across all your workspaces.
All of them.
All of them. So uniform access policies, security rules, compliance standards enforced globally. Think of it like trying to navigate a city where every single block has different traffic laws.
Yeah.
Complete chaos. Unity Catalog brings that standardized highway code, if you will, to your data. Makes everyone's journey smoother, safer.
Got it.
And if you step back for a second, the cumulative effect of these 4 pillars, it's pretty profound. They really do address the data chaos, the security vulnerabilities, the lack of transparency, and that inconsistent governance that, frankly, plagues so many organizations today.
Okay, so we've really outlined the compelling what and why behind Unity Catalog. But I think for many listeners, the immediate question is, okay, great, how do I actually get this thing up and running?
Right, the implementation.
Yeah, what's the practical journey look like to implement such a robust system?
It's surprisingly structured, actually. But before diving in, there are a few foundational pieces you need, kind of like setting up the site before you build the house.
Prerequisites.
Exactly. You'll need the right Databricks plan, naturally, premium or enterprise, and crucially, an administrative role for the metastore itself. This person or role is the ultimate governor.
The keys to the kingdom.
Pretty much. And it's also highly recommended to have the Databricks CLI configured because, for real-world ops, you'll want to automate a lot of this.
Makes sense. Scripting it.
Right. The CLI is your gateway for that. So once those are in place, the first big step is actually creating the Unity Catalog metastore.
Yeah.
You do this through the Databricks account console. Give it a name, point it to a cloud storage root path like an S3 bucket or Azure Data Lake Storage, specify the region. And a critical part here is configuring managed storage credentials.
How does that work? Securely.
Yeah, often using a secure Databricks-generated IAM role. It basically allows Unity Catalog to securely access that underlying cloud storage on your behalf without you having to manage keys directly in the same way.
Okay, got it. So you've set up this central governing metastore. What's the logical next step? Bringing your actual data operations under its control.
Good question. Next, you assign your existing Databricks workspaces to this new metastore.
Connecting them up.
Exactly. It's pretty straightforward in the metastore settings. You just select the workspaces you want to attach, bringing them under Unity Catalog's governance.
Okay.
After that, you configure access control. This is where you start defining who can see what. You assign high-level roles like data steward, data owner.
Mm-hmm.
And then, crucially, you use standard SQL grant statements. Grant usage on catalog to let a group even see a catalog exists.
Right.
Or grant select on schema to give read access to a specific set of tables within that catalog.
So you're not just organizing data, you're giving it a clear address book and like bouncers at the door.
Yeah, something like that. It definitely makes onboarding new users or integrating new apps much easier. Once that's set, you're ready to start structuring your actual data within it.
Creating the hierarchy.
Precisely. You begin creating your catalogs, schemas, and tables. It's a clear hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Catalogs are top-level domains, schemas are like folders inside, and tables are your actual data files.
Then you use SQL for this.
Yep, standard SQL. Create commands like create catalog sales data. Then inside that, create schema sales data.monthly reports. And finally, create table sales data.monthly reports.june with your columns.
Okay. And you mentioned lineage earlier. That just happens.
It just happens. As we discussed, lineage is automatically captured by Unity Catalog behind the scenes. You don't really have to do anything extra to turn it on for basic tracking.
And you can see it.
Oh, yeah. You can explore it graphically right in the Data Explorer in Databricks, see how data flows.
That automatic lineage is incredibly powerful. Traceability, audits. But you also mentioned getting really specific with access control, not just whole tables, but pieces of data.
Right. And this is where it gets really powerful. Beyond just simple grants, you can implement row-level security and column masking directly within Unity Catalog.
Row-level security, meaning only seeing certain rows.
Exactly. You define a filter function, maybe based on region, like create or replace row filter region, as region in US. Then you apply it to a table. Alter table sales data.monthly reports.june set row filter region. Now, users querying that table might only see the US rows, depending on their permissions or context.
Wow, okay. And column masking, hiding sensitive stuff.
Yep. Same idea. Create a function to obfuscate, say, a social security number. Create or replace function masks, string return concat, XXXX, right?
It's showing the last 4 digits.
Exactly. Then apply it. Alter table customer data, alter column SSN set, mask ses. So depending on who's asking, they either see the real SSN or the masked version. It transforms the data on the fly.
That's very sophisticated control.
It really is. And finally, for full accountability, you definitely want to monitor those audit logs.
Turning them on and setting them somewhere.
Yeah, enable them in your workspace settings and integrate them with your cloud's logging services, CloudTrail on AWS, Azure Monitor, whatever you use for long-term storage, analysis, alerting.
Okay, that's a clear path. But, projects vary wildly in size and complexity.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for your specific project? One of the really valuable insights from our source material is how Unity Catalog can be tailored.
Right.
It's not one size fits all, whether you're doing something simple or building like an enterprise data mesh.
Absolutely. It's definitely not one size fits all. And the best practices really do adapt. For simple projects, maybe a single catalog, small team, the recommendation is keep it simple.
Lean and mean.
Exactly. Use just one catalog to group all your data. Start with basic table-level permissions. Keep your schema naming consistent, obviously, but avoid over-segmenting things too early.
Don't overcomplicate it.
Right. You might even just document your grants in a shared spreadsheet to begin with. The goal is simplicity, quick wins.
Okay, keeping it lean, focused for smaller efforts. What happens when you scale up, say, multiple teams, more complex data landscapes?
Right. For those medium projects, things change. You've got multiple teams, maybe distinct business domains, multiple schemas. You'd probably start creating separate catalogs per domain or business unit. You'd also logically use schemas to isolate different environments. Dev, test, prod, that's pretty standard.
Okay.
Column masking for sensitive fields becomes much more important at this scale. And you should definitely leverage groups for grants rather than trying to manage individual users. That gets messy fast.
Use your identity provider groups.
Exactly. Enforce naming conventions rigorously, like maybe team purpose environment, just to keep things organized. And crucially, start automating those grants. Use Terraform, use the CLI. Make it repeatable and auditable.
Infrastructure as code for your grants.
Precisely.
Okay. And then for the really big, complex enterprise stuff, maybe even going towards a data mesh architecture, what changes there?
Yeah, that's where you pull out the advanced strategies.
Yeah.
You'd really lean into a catalog per domain model. That's a core concept in data mesh, right? Treating data as a product owned by a domain. Implementing row-level security policies becomes almost essential, especially for multi-tenant data, ensuring different business units or even external customers only see their slice of the pie.
Right. Critical for that model.
Definitely. You'll also want comprehensive data lineage enabled and probably integrate with external catalogs too. Think Microsoft Purview or AWS Glue catalog to create a unified metadata layer across the entire enterprise, not just Databricks.
Wow. Bridging across platform.
Exactly. Standardizing all your permissions and infrastructure as code becomes non-negotiable. Using CI/CD pipelines for schema, table creation, grant management,
Full automation.
plus regular reviews, pruning old grants, and really carefully considering schema evolution policies when you're dealing with massive, constantly changing data.
It sounds like a lot more rigor is needed there.
It is, but it raises an important point, doesn't it? No matter the scale, there's a strategic way to use Unity Catalog. You avoid over-engineering for the simple stuff, but you have the tools to ensure robustness for the most complex scenarios.
Makes sense. Adapting the approach.
Yeah.
Now, beyond the setup and the scaling, there are always those overarching principles for security and ongoing operations, right? Things to keep in mind for long-term success.
Absolutely. From a security and governance perspective, remember, all access is ultimately governed by those metastore admins, so their security practices are paramount. Protect those accounts.
Good point.
And it's really best practice to leverage SCIM. That's a system for cross-domain identity management.
Okay. What does that do for you?
It basically means your user identities and group memberships automatically sync between your main identity provider like Azure AD or Okta and Databricks.
Ah, so user management gets way simpler.
Way simpler and consistent. Also, periodically rotate your storage credentials, enable audit log forwarding to your main cloud logging services, as we said, and always, always test permissions thoroughly. Staging environment first.
Test.
Yeah.
Got it. And operationally, day-to-day.
Operationally, you should keep an eye on the performance of your catalogs and metadata queries. Make sure things stay snappy. Plan your underlying cloud storage in advance where the actual data lives to avoid weird permission conflicts between Unity Catalog and, say, direct S3 or ADLS access policies.
Ah, potential conflicts there.
Yeah, you need clarity. And finally, make sure to version your schemas. Track changes. It helps with data management, rollbacks, understanding evolution.
Good operational hygiene.
Exactly.
So, wow, what a deep dive into Databricks Unity Catalog. We've really seen how it offers that centralized metadata, the super fine-grained control, the automated lineage, and that consistent security model across your entire data landscape, and how it adapts, to projects of basically any size.
Mm-hmm.
It really feels like it's about bringing order and, maybe more importantly, trust to that data chaos we talked about at the start.
And zooming out even further, I think the impact goes beyond just the technical governance, Well, it's about enabling a whole new level of trust, collaboration, maybe even creativity around data assets. When your teams can actually trust the data, know where it came from, and feel confident in its security.
It frees them up.
It fundamentally accelerates things. Data democratization, responsible data innovation, it all gets easier. Which actually raises kind of an interesting question for you, the listener, to ponder.
Okay.
In a world that's increasingly moving towards these decentralized data architectures, like data mesh, how does a centralized governance solution like Unity Catalog not just fit in, but maybe actually become the crucial connective tissue, the thing that makes that whole decentralized vision secure, coherent, and truly powerful? How does central governance enable decentralization effectively? Something to think about.